Welcome to Dairy Delivery by the Dairy Star. On today's episode, we'll explore a farm offering calf cuddling from Rogers, Minnesota. Next, we'll visit with Jeff Novak, a first-generation farmer who has his hands full on his newly formed dairy, as well as a few other enterprises. Following that, we'll visit with our top performer for this issue, as our Minnesota reporter Sarah Middendorf sat down with Brian and Jill Nelson of Olmar Farms in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. Finally, we'll wrap up today's episode with Michelle Stengler as she got back to her alma mater at UW River Falls for Egg Day on campus, where she spoke with the Dairy Club's president, Ainsley Noble. This is Dairy Delivery. All dairy, all the time.
This is Jeff Ditzenberger, the Director of Communications and Member Services here at Farm First Dairy Cooperative. What is Farm First Dairy Cooperative? We are a member cooperative that does test verification. We also do tank calibration. We have member support where we support member events and farm tours and partner with local industry and dairy promotion. We also have policy advocacy. Farm First represents farms in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. This wide and diverse membership builds a strong voice of representation on dairy legislation and issues that affect your bottom line. And one of our biggest benefits, milk income loss benefits. If you'd like to have more information about Farm First Dairy Cooperative, give me a call. Jeff Ditzenberger, 608-214-9137. Again, Jeff Ditzenberger, Farm First Dairy Cooperative, 608-214-9137.
I'm Michelle Stengler.
And I'm Dan Walker. And we're your reporters with Dairy Star, bringing you the latest in the dairy industry, including hearing from farmers from across the Midwest and beyond. For this episode, we're actually in person. This is actually our first time meeting here.
Yeah, so we have a lot of reporters on staff and people in bringing the Dairy Star all together. So we're here in Sauk Center, Minnesota. If you're unfamiliar, that's in Stearns County, very dairy heavily county. And it's been fun just to connect in person because we do all our work remotely. In a sense, we have a staff here. We have a staff in Wisconsin. So, well, what's it been like for you to see the whole team come together? It's
been nice. I mean, it's my second time up here. I came up here once in November just to kind of get the new employee orientation, and now being back up here again, get some familiarity with the town a little bit, and actually get to meet Amy Kylo. She helped me out tremendously in my first couple months and still does as one of our main editors. And getting to meet you finally has been really cool. So that way we can actually record the podcast with people we actually know a little bit better. So it's been awesome.
And that's what's really cool is we love to go on farms, and that's what makes the Dairy Star unique. We're there on the farms, and we don't see our team members because we're reporting on stories, but always great to be here with team members this week, like it is maybe for our listeners as well when they're with colleagues. But it's May, it's beef month. Tell me about your experience with beef. Do you cook it?
Mostly, yeah. I'd say growing up on the farm, we always raised our steers for beef as well. So we had a little bit of a beef production with it. So it was always, I'd say getting a homegrown steak is always a little bit better than getting one from the store. So that's always what we appreciated. And it was actually kind of a Christmas present the last couple of years from my parents. Has been a quarter of a steer or a half steer or something, depending on how much freezer room we had.
Yeah, I know when we had dairy farmed, beef on dairy was an interesting topic we were getting into, and then we had used some animals for our own meat to enjoy as a family. So a lot of fun celebrations this month happening. I know that, especially in Wisconsin, and those checkoff organizations are putting stuff together. But another fun thing here in May is I think about the fair. I think of getting ready for the fair for many of our young adults that are listening in. And I know I was active in 4-H and FFA, and you're choosing your projects. What about you when you think of May? Are you excited for the months ahead of fair celebrations?
Yeah. It's always interesting having those events in different cities and stuff. I know it's always one of my favorite things of having the unique names for each city's fair or festival. Like in Sparta, we had Butterfest. I know in La Crescent they do Apple Fest, and Holman, where I just moved to, it's Corn Fest. That's in September, but still, like those little ones are always fun, and having the county fairs coming up are always cool. What kind of preparation did you do to get your animals ready for the fair?
Yeah, in May and June, since we had showed just at the county fair, my sisters and we had chose our animals or dedicated, this is who we are going to spend the summer with, training and getting ready for our fair, which is in the middle of August. And then also just taking them out every day. We had a small dairy farm. We milked about 50 cows. And so we had that personal connection, taking them out of the yard and getting them into the barn. That would start in the middle of May and more maybe into June, but this time of the year is exciting because it's finally warm. You get the itch to be outside. If you're a high school student, you get the itch to graduate and to have school done. So, we are certainly excited for all the celebrations this month and, the summer because this is my season. But we have so many stories here that are included in the Dairy Star newspaper, and we're excited to bring you so many of those conversations right here on Dairy Delivery. So let's get into some of those conversations.
Cuddle up with our first story today from Rogers, Minnesota. Tiffany Klopacki, our Central Minnesota reporter, spoke with the Scherber family, who started up Curious Cows and Company, giving people a chance to visit the farm and offers the unique experience of calf cuddles.
So how did you get the idea to start Curious Cows and Company?
We were looking for a way to, as developments and stuff get closer out towards us to the farm, looking for a way to share the farm experience with the community. I knew from my own experience, my kids loved coming out and playing with the calves, so we thought that'd be a good way to open our doors in a positive way to get people from the community to see us. See who farmers are and not just see the farm and look at it as a building.
Yeah, and I think too it's really important there's lots of farms everywhere trying to find ways to diversify. And so this was a way we could add an added income to the farm, and we had got the idea actually from another farmer that we had read about in the Dairy Star, a farmer from New York that they had done an article on, and she's got a creamery and she started calf cuddling to kind of bring people to the creamery. And we thought that was a really fun way to diversify the farm, to bring the community together to the farm. And we love our cows. We love their personalities. And it's a fun way to be able to share the personalities and share what life is like on a dairy farm, a modern day dairy farm, but then also share how happy the cows are. And people really do love coming to just snuggle with the calves. So far, it's been very positive. I had one time where somebody came and a calf just reached out before they started cuddling or anything. A calf reached out and licked her arm, and she said, if that's the only thing that happened today, that's all I needed. That's the best thing. So it's just fun to see. It melts my heart kind of when I let people do their cuddling session. I'm not just like standing there, but I leave. When I come back, it just melts my heart when I see the calf laying down and somebody either like laying their head on them or the calf laying their head on the guest's lap or something. And it's just really sweet to see that interaction, and just fun to have the guests out to see what life is like on our farm, but then also to meet all the cows.
So the people that come here for the calf cuddling sessions, are they local people? Do they come from all over?
They kind of come from all over. It started off with local, but now we're definitely getting people from all over. We have lots of people who tell us, they've seen cow cuddling in other states, and they've been trying to find a place in Minnesota, and so they're really excited when they find our farm. We do have some people drive a few hours to come cuddle. Some people that are flying in from out of state for other things, and then since we're so close to the cities, they add that onto their trip. But it's kind of a mixture of both. We are so close to the cities that there's so many people that don't have that farm experience and are wanting that farm experience. So we get a lot of variety and a lot of families and couples out. It seems to be a very common date night idea or activity. So it's been fun.
That was just a small glimpse of our interview with the Scherbers, and we're going to jump ahead a little bit further so you can hear even more about Curious Cows and Company in Rogers, Minnesota.
Calves, a lot of times, we don't use anybody on milk because a lot of times their only focus is getting milk. And so then they're not cuddly. They're more just social than cuddly. But then everyone's got a different personality too. So I'll have 4 that I'm like, you know what? I know you guys like your own space. You don't want to be cuddlers. It just depends on the personality. And so then it's like when the other group is kind of retiring, because once they get big, then they start to maybe play more too, or they might be rougher, and we don't want anyone that rough either, like they might just start headbutting or something like that. And when they're 400 pounds, that's not very cuddly anymore. Yeah, so then they graduate and they go on to the next stage of the farm, but then I'm like looking at who the next cuddlers will be, and we always use wean calves. But then who the next group will be and who's got like, a more cuddly, chill, calming personality than one who's mischievous and always getting into trouble or something like that. I don't know. Because they all have their own personalities.
Because when we first opened, we spent a ton of time like hands-on with the calves, trying to get them used to people and stuff. But really, like, Quincy's figured out how just through like the upbringing and the timing of the calves, what's been like a lot, like they're a lot more cuddly now with less time put in, just because we've kind of figured out the rhythm of timing and stuff with weaning and contact with people and stuff. Because we were able to narrow it down from the farm in New York, but we had to tweak it kind of. And a lot of farms like have people feed the cows when they come to get kind of that interaction that I guess like as an idea is like exciting to people. But we learned like we want the cows to be like full and fed before they come, because then they just lay down and people cuddle them versus like.
Oh, they try to suck on everybody.
Yeah.
Once they know it's eating time, then it's like, oh.
If they see everyone coming up, every customer coming up and feeding them, then they're just going to everyone for food. Versus like ours, kind of like we get them fed, they lay down, and then they're just used to coming up to them instead of them tracking people down for food, because they're used to people getting a handful of feed to feed them.
Which people come to snuggle, like if the cat, they don't really come to have that experience of feeding them. From what I've noticed and from what people have said to me, they like, there was one day a few appointments ago was the first day it was warm, so we opened up the garage door. So all winter we had the garage door shut, and the calves are used to that. But then the first day we had it open, they just had the zoomies for like an hour, and they didn't settle down. And I could tell that the customer was very disappointed because she just wanted to sit with the calves. So I gave them like a whole extra, like probably they stayed there for a full hour, and normally it's just a half hour. But because after time, the calves finally settled down and sat down, so then they could sit down with the calves' head like in their lap, and they were grooming them and stuff. But it's just like people definitely come to cuddle the calves. They don't come to, I don't know, run around. And they want it to be relaxing. And we have music playing in the background. And people really do just come to like either lay their head on the calf or have the calf lay their head on their lap or something like that. So that's definitely what they're looking for from what we've seen so far. So we just I have to know like what gives the, I usually move the calves in like an hour and a half beforehand so they get their zoomies out. They're always going to get the zoomies when they like first get there, and then I give them food and water and stuff, and then after like an hour or so they settle down. So they're settled down by the time the guests come and stuff. So it's finding all, I don't know, the little things that help calves should, because like for us, they're used to us all the time, so we're like, they're always calm around me. So it was hard at first starting because I'm like, oh yeah, they're calm, they're fine. But then once guests started arriving, then they're like running around and whatnot. So it's trying to find what, like, okay, this is what I need to do to make sure that they're calm.
Jeff Ditzenberger here with Farm First Dairy Cooperative. Are you a high school junior or senior who's thinking about extending their education past high school? Did you know that if your family is a Farm First Cooperative member, that you're eligible for a scholarship? And it doesn't matter if you're attending a 4-year, 2-year, or short course for that education. And it doesn't even have to be related to agriculture. You are eligible as long as your family is a Farm First Dairy Cooperative member. Give me a call to find out more. 608-214-9137. 9137. Farm First Dairy Cooperative, where we put members first.
The Sherbers family story can be found with the headline Cuddly, Curious Cows on dairystar.com and in the Minnesota and Iowa zone of the paper.
Next, we'll move to the Wisconsin zone of the paper as I got the chance to talk with Jeff Novak in Highland. Jeff and his wife Kayla milk 31 cows in a tie stall barn, supervised by their 1-year-old son, David. When I got to talk to Jeff, David's about a year old and he was sitting on a bucket at one end of the barn watching his parents milk cows on the other end. Now, milking is not the only thing that keeps Jeff busy. Hear from him as we discussed milking cows, operating a custom chopping business, working as a mobile welder, as well as raising beef and pork for a more direct-to-consumer style approach.
Started in dairy farming. My dad was a dairy farmer. He milked cows for 30 years. And then when he sold the cows, I wanted to continue the dairy farming, was not able to there. Then I've had this opportunity to buy this place in 2024, and then we started back up again. So it was like a 2-year gap where there was no milk in the family.
What was the process of buying this place like?
long.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you know the people who owned this place before?
We did. I actually milked here. They milked here. They bought this place 10 years ago, built a barn. I actually milked here the winter of 2021 for him and helped him out. And then last June, he approached us out of the blue completely saying, we're moving. Do you want to buy it? And the price was way too high at the time to even think about it. But over the summer, we come to an agreement and we're able to buy it and moved out. We were living in town. I have a house in town.
Okay.
So we moved out of town and come out here and wanted to be in the country and have our family here.
Yeah.
So
Why is it important for you to raise your family here?
I want to teach them how to work,
Yeah.
and I want them to be out in the country where they can run and they can be kids, they can play, but at the same time, I can teach them how to work, be committed to a job, and have chores to do. And this is just a perfect place away from the highway, and I think it's gonna be a good place for having a family.
Can you talk a little bit about your raising heifers and that kind of process? And that's on another facility, right?
Yeah, I have my heifers right now. All the heifers that I bought were bred beef.
Okay.
So I ended up selling those calves because I couldn't afford to keep them around for what they were bringing, and I had payments to make, so I sold those calves. And then, so on my other farm, I buy feeder cattle and like Holstein bull calves from the sale barn, raise those on waste milk, and raise those to finish cattle, about 1,500 pounds. Have around between 80 and 100 head all the time on the farm for as far as cattle at that location.
And then you also mentioned before we talked that you also have a little bit of a welding business.
I do. I started that right out of high school. That was kind of what I started with. About 1 year right out of high school. That was pretty much all I did until I bought my first tractor and round baler. And then I kind of weaned out of the welding and went more with the custom work.
Yeah.
And still do some welding. I don't have a shop to work in per se, so a lot of mine is on site. So I got a portable setup in the back of my truck. I used to have a trailer that rusted out, so I built the setup that goes in the back of my truck, and I'll go on site and do repairs for local farmers.
And you just kind of mentioned it. The custom work's more your bread and butter, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Custom work is the main income source.
Yeah. How'd you get into that?
Word of mouth. A friend of mine was doing custom round baling, and he got out of it. And so I got into it at that time and picked up his customers because he didn't want to do it anymore. And he was kind of weaning out of that and going more because they were expanding the dairy. And so I kind of took on his customers, and now I think all those customers have their own balers, and I've pretty much built a new line of customers.
Okay.
And
yeah. You also said you added beef and pigs for a little bit of food production. What's that look like?
hobby.
Yeah.
It's just kind of on the side. Just trying to produce a healthy product that I can feed my own family and other families that are interested. And so,
Why is it important to you to develop quality products for other families? Like you're doing with, you can say with your own dairy, with your own beef, your own pigs. Like it's clearly an important element of what you're trying to do. Why is it so important to you?
I like eating quality, healthy food myself, and I think other people do too. And it's kind of a side hobby that I can do, and other people can get enjoyment from it. And I love producing a healthy product that other people can take and they can enjoy and know where it comes from.
Yeah, for sure. Who helps you out on the farm the most?
My wife,
Yeah.
she helps me with the dairy farm. She's huge. She helps me out a lot. If I couldn't do it without her
Yeah.
on that. And as far as the custom work side, I've got 3 people that work for me. One pretty much full-time guy, and then my brother, and then another guy. And then the fall when we're chopping, my brother-in-law will come and help. So I'll usually have 5 or 6 guys helping when we're doing chopping.
How important is it to have that kind of family connection with everything?
I enjoy it. It is important. I like having family. Family is important. And so it's always fun working together and
It's a fun little added element to it, right?
It is.
Even say if you're having long days spent in the field and stuff, but you're doing it with your brothers and everything,
It is. It's fun. It's fun working together, and even when everything's going good, which sometimes it doesn't always, but it's fun when everything's working together and everybody's working together and everything's going good. It's fun to just like lots of times I'll sit in the packing tractor. That's where I like to be, and
Yeah.
brother runs a chopper and people are hauling, everything's going smooth, and it's rewarding. It's fun just to work together with other people, and I enjoy that.
This is Jeff Ditzenberger with Farm First Dairy Cooperative. At Farm First Dairy Cooperative, we put members first. One of the ways that we do that is a unique benefit called the Milk Income Loss Program. This program will assist you as a member financially if you incur a milk loss due to lightning, electrocution, loss of power, fire, windstorm, or other acts of nature that you cannot control. Interested in finding out more? Give me a call, Jeff Ditzenberger, at Farm First Dairy Cooperative at 608-214-9137 and find out how Farm First Dairy Cooperative puts members first.
Read all about Jeff and his diverse enterprises by looking up the story A Man with Many Hats on dairystar.com. And that story will be featured in the Wisconsin and Illinois zones of last week's paper. Next, our reporter Sarah Middendorf sat down with Brian and Jill Nelson at Olmar Farms in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. The Nelsons are recognized in the upcoming issue as part of our Top Performers section. Olmar Farms milks 130 cows twice a day, earning a rolling herd average of 30,318 pounds, with a 4.2% butterfat and a 3.2% protein. Let's hear from Brian and Jill Nelson at Olmar Farms.
Jill, can you start off by kind of telling me a little bit about your herd and your farm and kind of who's all involved in the day-to-day operation?
Yeah, we've got 130 milking registered Holsteins. It's my husband and I own the farm. He does all of our feeding and crop work, maintenance, and I basically take care of the herd, doing the herd health, the chores, and whatnot.
And what are some of the management strategies that your farm does to attain the production and the components that you have?
Yeah, I think it's I think all of the little things add up to a big thing, and it's important that, even when time is tight and money is tight, you just can't cut those corners because you'll you'll lose all that you've gained. So just trying to find the most efficient way to to do all those things right, making sure our feed stuffs are all high quality, just making sure everything is mixed well, all of the cows are taken care of. Cow manager has helped as far as, just staying on top of cows that might be a little bit off feed, or to keep on top of reproduction. So I think all of the things put together are equally as important.
Sure. How does it feel being able to, reach some of your goals as a farm? And I know you had said a couple years ago you'd struggled with some stray voltage. So being able to combat that, how has that been able to reach your goals that you have had?
Yeah, it's we're finally in a place where we feel comfortable with how the cows are doing. It's been a really long road to get here, having stray voltage for 9 years. And then the recovery time was so much longer than we ever thought. We really had hoped that the cows hadn't been so damaged from it, but by the time we got it fixed, every cow on the farm, it was their entire lifetime that they had been exposed to it. And so it really took turning over the herd completely to bring about, the changes and to finally have a healthy herd of cows and then start hitting our goals. It was pretty exciting when we first hit that 30,000 pound mark, and on twice a day milking, I think that's pretty extraordinary, and something that we're very, very proud of, and proud of all of the work that our team does to help us stay there.
Oh, for sure. What would you say would be the biggest change or the biggest difference that has gotten your herd average to over 30,000? I know stray voltage, but was that just kind of combating through that, or was there other things as well?
Well, I think, prior to us building our new barn and parlor, we were, getting up into the upper 28,000s of rolling herd average. So certainly the herd's always been bred to really maximize production. And so when we got into the new facility, the improved cow comfort was, obviously that was a really big deal. And I think that's just always going to be a big deal no matter where you're farming.
Oh, for sure. So you talked about kind of your milking cows and cow comfort. What do you do with your dry cows, and kind of how does that transition period go?
Yeah, we have a more unique dry cow program. When we had the stray voltage, we chose to go to shorter dry periods just because we needed any cow to fill the milking barn that we could find, that we could keep alive. And so just those additional 15 days of milk from the herd was important to us just to stay afloat. But we found that actually worked well for us. Because we have a small herd, we can't really do a dry cow diet and a pre-fresh diet with any efficiency. And so having a shorter dry period, we can feed that entire group more like a pre-fresh diet, and not be spending too much money doing that. And then it, reduces the number of herd moves or group moves that cows do. And we've been really happy with the results of that. You always got to watch if you've got, cows having twins, or, cows that have maybe struggled at some point in the lactation. We do try to get those, that 60-day dry period.
The top performer question and answer section is located in both zones of the paper and can be found online under Top Herds, Olmar Farms.
Well, this next story, I had the chance to go back to school at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. And I guess I wasn't taking more classes, but I visited my alma mater where I got the chance to speak with Ainsley Noble, who's part of the university's dairy club serving as president and helped contribute to the university's Ag Day on campus now in its 13th year. Noble helped put together the Dairy Club's booth, connecting with so many students and the community at the annual event. Let's hear from the conversation I had with her.
The agriculture industry has been a huge part of my life. Since I was a child, I grew up on a dairy farm, and coming to school and seeing so many students so passionate about agriculture and spreading the awareness about what agriculture truly means is so special and something near and dear to my heart. And I think it's very important that a school like this that's especially involved in the agriculture industry keeps that spirit alive, and seeing all these agriculture clubs is super cool.
Now, you helped organize a Dairy Club booth. Was there anything that you changed up from last year and that you changed it for this year?
Yes, this year we made it a little more interactive. So one of our other officers brought a cow that anybody who walks by and is interested in our booth is allowed to place a body part name on the cow. And so if they place one of them in the correct spot, or they place all of them, they can get either a bag of cheese curds that was donated from the Ellsworth Creamery, or some prizes that were donated to us through Midwest Dairy.
Wow, that's so exciting. Why did you decide that interactive was a way to go?
Obviously, students and members of the community are very interactive these days. Like, they love the hands-on experience and learning through that way. And we thought that was a great difference than a lot of the other booths that we had seen. So we thought we could do something like that, and maybe the community would get more involved, and then we could expand on that for years to come.
Now, when you look at this event, it also helps people like you to help, we often hear that we need to share our story. And this is a way to continue to learn those skills of sharing your story. Do you see that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for members in our club, and especially our officers, to really get the opportunity to share who they are and share how passionate they are about the dairy industry, and then get to network with all these other agricultural clubs and the community and the other students on campus that come.
Now, of course, the event just started, but if you were reflecting years past, what did you think the next day after Ag Day on campus? What were your thoughts? What was your perhaps maybe inspiration, or, oh, that was such a fun event because...
Getting to see the spark in people's eyes when they really kind of got something, especially this year, I'm very excited. We've already had a couple people come through and they label a part correct on the cow, and just seeing in their eyes, they're like, oh my gosh, I actually got it right. A lot of them, it's really hard to understand that they don't understand like we do. They didn't grow up around the industry that we did. And it's super cool to see all the sparks and the people learn more about dairy, and something that all of us are super passionate about.
Who do you all interact with? Who is all the hope here?
This morning already, there's been some elementary school students or daycare students that have come through, a lot of community members, a lot of other students on campus that aren't involved in agricultural clubs, and those that are involved, and everybody that kind of helps to put this on. The chancellor's been here. The Wisconsin DATCAP is here. There's state officers from the Wisconsin State FFA team. So kind of just anybody that's interested in coming, and the community is huge too. There's a lot of community members that come along.
Now, as you look at your club, are a lot of them here in capacities? Have you been promoting it?
Yes, absolutely. So we chose, we usually typically choose to have our officers run our booth here at Ag Day. And a lot of our officers, if not all of them, will be here in some capacity throughout the day, obviously still navigating, going to classes. Classes are super important here. And there's also a lot of Dairy Club members that I've seen that are like, oh, I'll step in and help with the booth, or a lot that are involved in other organizations that they're helping with. So that's super cool to see that as well.
Yeah. If you think about the theme, raising the bar in agriculture, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
Raising the standard and raising the awareness that other people have in the agriculture industry is really what comes to my mind. So helping those understand what agriculture means, and getting, I think one of the most important parts about the Raising the Bar in agriculture is seeing all these college age students put on something so special to a lot of them, and seeing all these clubs come together and take time out of their busy schedules on a Thursday, on a day that's really not that lovely out, still to spread awareness about agriculture because they truly care.
Read all about UW River Falls Ag Day on campus under the headline Connecting Students to the Industry on dairystar.com. We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Farm First Cooperative. Farm First represents farms in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. This diverse membership builds a strong voice of representation on dairy legislation and issues that can affect a farmer's bottom line.
If you'd like more information about Farm First Dairy Cooperative, call Jeff Ditzenberger at 608-214-9137. That's Jeff Ditzenberger at 608-214-9137. Other stories included in this issue of the Dairy Star include an Our Side of the Fence about planting. I'm really anxious to read that one because there's got a lot of difference in planting based on location and practices. The little differences between a farmer in western Iowa compared to northern Wisconsin is always a little interesting.
And just to really see who is starting to plant and probably getting a little jealous if you're not planting, that'll be a fun section to read. Another story in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota takes us to Lauren Steffel. Steffel chose to work on a dairy farm and milked her first cow almost 6 years ago. In our story, she talks about how that decision to work on the farm changed her career path and her life. That's the power of the dairy community, right? And that story is titled City Girl Meets Farm.
Next, Amy Kylo, a reporter in southeast Minnesota, had the chance to talk to Jacob and Barbara Schmucker as their herd of cows returned to the barn just 19 days after a fire destroyed it in St. Charles. The story details what Jacob was thinking when he discovered the fire and how his family, with the help of their community, rebuilt and overcame the setback. Read the full story titled From Flames to Restoration in 19 Days at dairystar.com.
19 days, think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, power of community there coming together to help each other out.
Yeah, well, a lot of technology happening here in the dairy industry, including for one farm family. Nearly a year after installing a Lely Vector automatic feeding system, Stacy Smart, our writer in southeast Wisconsin, talked with Jason Boss of Tower View Acres in her article titled Nonstop Fresh Feed. Boss talked about how the automatic feeding system improved efficiency in feed mixing and distribution, along with cow flow through their 3 Lely A4 robotic milking units.
I know in that one, Stacy and Jason talked about how much tech they have on the farm, and it's always amazing how much more advanced technology is in dairy farming now. We also have a super interesting history piece for this issue by Amy Kylo. Kylo's article details how Mayo Clinic, a healthcare provider with patients in every state in the U.S. and 135 countries, was started by farmers in Olmsted County. That article is titled From Sterilized Halls to Barn Stalls. Find these and more stories in this week's Dairy Star newspaper. Then come back to Dairy Delivery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts to hear even more. Be sure to rate and subscribe. And if you or someone you know is interested in being featured in the Dairy Star or on Dairy Delivery, reach out at dairydelivery@dairystar.com so we can continue sharing all dairy all the time.